Hi everyone, I'm Fox 35 Storm Team Meteorologist Ian Cassette, joining you with a check on the tropics. Now, we are into late October, so things do tend to start slowing down as we are seeing temperatures cooling in the oceans. But I'm going to show you they still are very warm. We're going to talk about a couple of systems here. One we're going to talk about in particular is Tammy, which is a hurricane as of this evening, and it is expected to bring impacts to the Caribbean islands. We'll talk about where that is heading and if we could see any impacts in the U.S. from that. The other system here, I'm going to touch on this very briefly. This is a tropical wave, a collection of storms there just north of Panama. Now, this is only given a 20% chance of development over the next 7 days. It will be a slow mover as it drifts to the west, but it is likely to run out of real estate and likely not to impact anyone other, bringing some rainy, stormy weather there to Central America. But we're going to talk about Tammy and where Tammy is heading. Tammy is a hurricane and is expected to maintain that status as it goes and brushes very close with the Caribbean islands and northern Leeward Islands, and then turning to the northeast out to sea. So this isn't expected to head closer to the U.S., but it is going to be an impactful system there for the Caribbean islands. Closer view of it this evening as we are recording this on Friday evening. What it looks like right now, it's really struggled to get itself fully together. It did develop an eye briefly earlier today, and it's trying to do that again. Notice the convection, the storms. That's what we look for when we're seeing these storms developing, is those thunderstorms that are building, those cold tops of those storms, which is what the infrared is picking up. The southern edge has looked healthier, but the northern edge has not, because it's been battling wind shear, which is something that we look for with this time of the year. Higher levels of wind shear makes it very difficult for these storms to get going. And so it is still expected to come very closely to the most northern islands of the Leeward Islands and then moving to the northwest, and will likely bring deteriorating conditions here as we go on through this evening and through Saturday. So the latest from the National Hurricane Center as of the 5 o'clock update is they are expecting it to continue moving northwestward, and it will be a close call where this storm will go. The trend has been a little bit farther east, which is good news, because remember, the dirty side of we call these storms is that right side. That's where you find the stronger winds. That's where you find the heaviest rain sometimes. And we are likely to see this on the islands affected from the west side. Now, they're still going to get some strong winds coming from the north as it moves closer, and could develop even more, getting up to 80 miles per hour by Tuesday or Saturday afternoon. And then as it moves farther to the north, it will eventually run into a wall. That wall will be a front. The same front that moved through here this weekend is going to keep this out at sea. So that is why I'm confident that this isn't going to head towards Florida. We probably won't even see any direct impacts in Florida. Sometimes with these larger systems, they can churn up the water, lead to larger seas, and also eventually lead to higher rip current risks and large breaking waves. But this one is expected to be a Category 1 storm and kept far east of us thanks to that front. This is also why during this time of the year, it's a little bit more difficult to get these storms coming our way when we have frequent cold fronts that come through that act as a blockade and send these storms out to sea. So a look at the rainfall totals, and we're expecting some larger rainfall totals out at sea, but the concern is that potential for flooding in the Caribbean islands. Thankfully, again, with this system trending a little bit farther to the east, the heaviest rainfall totals may be to the east of the islands. Could be over a foot of rain. If this trends farther west, then we're talking about major flooding all the way from Roseau to the north, and that could lead to mudslides, which is a very big concern for those Caribbean islands, and also leading to flash flooding, dangerous conditions. So if this forecast were to hold, that would be lesser of the rainfall totals and keep it farther to the east. So that is something to watch for here through the weekend, is where the heaviest band of rain does line up. Now, as I mentioned earlier, what this storm is battling is the wind shear. Currently, it has some strong wind shear. That's the red you see. That is the stronger winds in the upper levels. That's just making it difficult for this storm to form. These thunderstorms, which are the core of the storm, they're trying to develop, but when you have strong winds just cutting the top of them off, it makes it difficult for these storms to continue to develop. So with that said, that is why it will likely stay a Category 1 storm, is because of the fact that it doesn't have a very favorable environment when it comes to winds. And you look at what's going on in the Gulf of Mexico right now, high wind shear because of the jet stream that's overhead, that cold front swiping through, which is another factor during El Nino seasons, which we are in. leads to higher wind shear over the Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico, which makes it difficult for these storms to get there. But we could still get homegrown systems, and it is still a reason to continue to watch all the way to the end of the hurricane season. Even though things start to slow down, there is that potential. A look at those tropical models, the spaghetti models, all showing it to be a close call to those most northern islands in the Leeward Islands, and then eventually making that direct turn to the northeast after running into the wall that will be the cold front. But it's going to be close, and it is still likely to bring big impacts there for those islands. As we look at the sea surface temperatures, this is looking at where the temperatures of the ocean is sitting compared to normal. The anomalies. So all the oranges, the reds that you see, that means the temperatures are above average. It is above average in the Caribbean, still above average in the Gulf of Mexico, and above average all the way out into the main development region, which is from the Caribbean islands and to the east. With that possible and with that environment, that would lead to a better chance of seeing those storms continuing to develop. Because remember, that's what the storms use as fuel. They use the warm sea surface temperatures. So that is something to consider here with one of the variables that we're going to be looking for late in the season. We're not done with the season just yet. Let's just check on where we are with those names. That is Tammy that we saw. The next storm name would be Vince, then Whitney. So we would have exhausted the whole list if we can see Vince and Whitney get taken off the board. What do we do from then? Well, something that was recently introduced is a reserve list. So no longer are we going to have Greek names that we'll tap into. We have a new set of names from Adria to Braylon and continues there. Hopefully we don't have to use this for all of our sake, but there is that potential that we only have 2 more names on the list. We're going to continue to track things in the tropics, and we encourage you to keep checking in and making sure that you are well aware of what's going on, because things can change pretty quickly, especially with higher odds of homegrown systems this time of the year. I'm Fox 35 Storm Team Meteorologist Ian Cassette. Have a wonderful weekend.